Hey, welcome to the January producer office hours. And this is a friend of ETC and my dear friend. I've known Pat, oh my goodness, for 15, 16 years.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sure.
a long time. I've been learning from him the entire time. So a lot of what I know is based on being a friend of Pat. So I'm happy to introduce Pat to all of my friends. And just why don't you just start with a little bit about your producing background? I know some people know you, but others people don't. And for the sake of the recording, can you just start and just talk about some of the things you've done?
Okay. I've started um, producing in the late 90s. I had a friend who had written a play, and she mentioned it to me, and I said, I will come and see it. And she told me that it wouldn't be done because it couldn't be produced. And I said, why? And she said, because it's too expensive. And I said, what do you mean it's too expensive? And she said, I don't know. They just told everybody tells me it's too expensive. And I had been working in the business world for 20 years at that point and said, well, what do tickets sell for? What do you have to pay actors? What do theaters rent for? And she said, I have no idea. And I said, well, how can you decide it's too expensive to produce if you don't know any of those things? And so I said, well, I will help you. And that's how I got involved in producing.
But you
Um,
had been in the
uh,
theater before for a
yeah,
long
well, yeah, it was my minor in college, and I had, I, but a philosophy major and a theater minor doesn't get you a job. And my mother says, I will get you a job. A friend of mine owes me a favor, and he will hire you. And so I started working in healthcare and started a company, healthcare company, and a few other things like that. And when I started helping my friend out, I got kind of back into being a theater person again and enjoyed it so much that I decided to stick with it.
So you're a writer?
And
You're
and yeah, and then one of the things I did was got office space and a couple of theaters on Chambers and West Broadway, and I had to figure out. I was asked by one of the people there what I did, and I said, "Well, I'm a producer." And he said, "No, I mean creatively." And I said, "Well, I can't sing, I can't dance, and I got a D in my acting class in college." And so I said, "Okay, you're a writer. Write me something because we're doing a short play festival." Um, and so I thought, sure, what the heck, right? And I did it and gave it to him, and he had gave it back to me all marked up with questions and comments and things like that, and said rewrite it. And so we went through this 3 or 4 times, and he said it's ready to go, and we'll put it in the short play festival. And so that's how I became a writer. And later on, um, I didn't see him around the space, and usually he was there every day, every other day. And I said, "What happened to John?" And they said, "Oh, a friend of his is on sabbatical, so he's teaching the graduate playwriting class at Sarah Lawrence." And I went, "Oh, that was kind of fun. I have this master class in playwriting from this guy." And then I started writing for the Players Theater in New York in the Village. Has a short play, 3 short play festivals a year, and so I started regularly writing for that. Um, and now I'm working on.
Directed one of them for you.
Pardon me. Yeah,
I
Terry, you directed a couple. I thought you directed more than one. A
couple. Yeah,
couple.
couple
Um,
of them.
anyway, and then producing wise, the most well-known thing that I did was called The Exonerated. which we did in 2003, and we won a not the Tony, whatever that thing is,
Seal Hotel,
drama desk.
the drama desk.
We done a drama desk for it, and won also a Lortel and a couple of other things. And then I also did a production called Play Dead, which was written by Teller of Penn and Teller and Todd Robbins. And that got nominated for a drama desk, but we didn't win. Darn it. And also did a couple of odd things. Bedlam Theater Company's Hamlet and St. Joan. I produced that off Broadway. And
39 steps.
the 39 steps at Union Square, the off Broadway one.
The Assignment.
The Assignment, yeah. Yeah, well, you remember these things better than I do.
Because I was right there with you. And then My Father's Daughter with
My father, Ursula Rucker at
right, La Mama.
La Mama, and now I'm working with Kate on a production called The Fallen Season, which is a hip hop musical written by Master Ace, who's a legend in the hip hop world. And our argument is that musical theater, in order to appeal to a new audience, is going to have to use hip hop as the musical genre. And I'm glad Eric wasn't around to hear that.
Oh, he's there. He's just
Oh,
turning,
okay.
turning his camera off.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm here.
Okay. Okay.
We can't
Any-
talk about him because he's here.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, I think the future of musical theater will be hip hop, and it will recombine popular music of the day with theater music, just like it happened when Showboat came out. Because before that, musical theater was, operetta-ish. And when people said, why don't we use popular music to do musical theater, and created Showboat, all of a sudden musical theater took off, and we had the golden age. And then when the popular music became rock and roll, that they separated the two kinds of popular music and theater music separated. And I think hip hop will be the mechanism where they're reunited again.
Oh.
And so that's what I'm devoting most of my time to now.
So you're also the artistic director for Rhymes Over Beats.
Yeah, but that's hip hop theater.
Right.
Yes.
But we are a fiscally sponsored project, a fraction.
Yeah, at the moment, I'm thinking I'm giving up on not-for-profit theater and going back to just being pure commercial. I've been kicking that around. Yeah, because there's a whole bunch of reporting requirements. I forget what it's called now, but you have to fill out all these forms and things. I don't know if it's national or just for the state of New York. And I just don't want to deal with all that crappy paperwork.
Well, none of us want to deal with that crappy paperwork. I just want the grants.
Yeah, well.
Well, I also heard that Trump stopped Biden's arts initiative projects, which is no surprise. So, yeah. All right. So I am going to open it up. But before I kind of unpin you, you want to talk about your latest book?
Oh, okay. I've written a book called Writing Producible Plays. And one of the things that irritates me more than anything as a producer is when I read a play that I really, really like, but think, this is really, really good, and I really would like to produce it, but I'm a commercial producer, and if I do produce it, I'm going to lose money. So I don't do it. And nothing frustrates me more than that. And so the book is written from a producer's point of view, talking about the things that a writer can do to make the play more producible. And most of it deals with how do you hold your economics in check, a lot of writers think, oh, I can't have a 40-person cast. But do they think about when you write a play, the age, gender, and race of the characters? If they're all the same, you have one understudy whose salary you need to pay. If each one is different, like you have a male, a female, and a child, for example, then you go from one understudy salary to 3 understudy salaries. And those things add up in a producer's mind and make it harder for them to recoup. And if a play is considered too hard to recoup, the producer will most likely pass on it, even if they like the play. And so I've written a book, and Kate's read it, and she tells me she'll send out a copy to anybody who wants to read the very first rough draft. And if you would be kind enough to tell me what you think of it, or if you have things you don't understand and or think is wrong, feel free.
We're happy to send it out, but we really do want you to read it and to give feedback.
Yes.
So, that's the point where we are with it.
There aren't a lot of writers groups for nonfiction books. So I'm using you guys as my reading panel, if you don't mind.
Happy to.
Thank you,
Great.
Melissa.
Yeah, I'd be happy to, really.
Oh, I loved your truth thing, by the way. I thought you guys were great for the foreign play.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a great company and a lot of fun to work with. And yeah, and challenging, but good, a good challenge.
So I'm going to be sending the book to Melissa.
Yes, please.
Wendy, and DW, and Barbara. Great.
And please bear in mind that it's just the rough is the first draft. So
okay, is it in Word or would be a PDF?
yeah, it's either whatever Kate decides she wants to send out.
Yeah, I'll send it to you as a PDF.
Okay, because if it's in Word, I can put notes on the side. But if it's, you know what I mean? Like I can do a notes section and then you can just read the notes as it applies, which a lot of editors use Word so that they can do that.
Yeah, thank you. I will send Melissa one in Word.
Okay.
That's great.
Yeah,
Barbara, I think, is an editor.
So I am a professional editor, so or was in another lifetime. So I would prefer it in Word if you really do want comments too. It's just
yeah, because then they can be right there on the page. You can read it. It's like right there, and it's very helpful.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a little more difficult on PDF. You can do it, but
yeah, you can do comments on a PDF as well.
Yeah, I use Word, so don't have a problem doing that.
Okay, good.
Okay, Melissa and Barbara want Word. Are you sending it out, or did you want me to send it out, Pat?
Well, anybody wants a PDF, you can send out, and Word ones I'll send out.
Okay, sounds good. So it's really rough, but it's like 104 pages, and I learned a lot, and I know this guy pretty well, but I think it has a lot of good help,
If you send me a Word, I mean, I can at least highlight. I'm not great at using notes, but I can highlight things that maybe, misspellings or phrases that are working.
So I'm a terrible speller. Thank God for Word catching my spelling. So you don't have to think about things like that because those will all be caught. It's more about the substance, what doesn't seem clear to you.
Clarity, right. Clarity or
right. He's got his own writing style. He writes like he talks.
Yeah.
So
Okay, that's great. That's great. No, I actually have a lot of fun editing prose. Yeah, and story. Yeah.
This
or not editing, but commenting. Like commenting on it. Definitely.
What I wanted to do with this one was I imagined it me talking to a playwright about the play and what they should think about when they're writing the play.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
to make it more likely than not, then somebody's going to say, "Oh yeah, I want to do that."
Yeah.
So you've got three things. How do you find it's in three parts. How do you find a producer? How do you get them to read your play? And once they've read the play and liked it, how do you get them to agree to produce it?
Yeah.
And working with them. Because a lot of times I really liked the play, and it was one story pops into mind. It was a great play. It was two characters, single set, everything you could think about that would be absolutely perfect from a commercial producer's point of view. And when I was talking to the writer, I said, okay, I know this really good casting director and she will set it up. And he said, nope, can't do that. And I said, what do you mean? He said, this story is about me and my cousin. And so we are the only two people who could do it. And
What?
I said, your cousin? How much acting has your cousin done? They've been in anything I know? And he said, oh no, he's never acted before it, but it's his story, so we have to do it. And and so
God.
I didn't do it.
Oh, man.
Self-sabotage.
Yeah.
And a lot of things that happened are stories of things where I did something dumb and learned from it.
Yeah.
Like letting the writer direct, and if they've never directed it before.
Yeah. Even I know better than that. I'd be terrified to correct my own plays.
Mhm.
Right, right. No, I know my husband always will look at it and say, oh, not a good sign. Like, like if we're going to see something,
Yeah.
he will. He'll go, oh, written and directed, but oh, not a good sign.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to go. So that's even the audience, like, like,
Yeah.
But this happened, it was maybe the second or third play that I produced. And I didn't know better.
Now you do. Did
Now
you
I do.
Did you include the time that we allowed the writer to hire his college friend as the director that tanked the show?
Which one was this?
The one I was on with you, and Martin was on with you, and Molly was
Oh,
on.
okay, yeah.
You should include that one.
No,
It's not my fault.
but this person was a director. The
Not a
writer,
very good one.
yeah, but a director is you can. That wasn't necessarily a mistake of a category mistake. It was a bad choice in a particular person, not a category. Like never let a writer, unless they're Harold Pinter, never let a writer direct their own shows.
Well, I learned from that one.
it's kind of cutting out a perspective that
Yes.
could be brought in, like you are assuming that you're the be all and end all. And, sometimes I don't even understand my own work. And like, the director, like, really sometimes, like, hopefully they really get it and have a vision that goes even beyond
Mhm.
what you envision, in your own little world, so I think it's a real mistake to assume that you can, just because you've seen it in your head just doesn't mean that you're going to be able to direct that, so yeah.
Yeah,
And
I wouldn't attempt to direct anything of mine that's brand new. Something that's maybe had tons of productions and it was kind of a low risk situation. Maybe I'd consider it. By low risk, I mean some community theater in Iowa. somewhere where it's not going to get reviewed. Nobody's going to see it. No.
And you'd be making a significant contribution.
Well, there's certain place of mine. I've seen enough productions,
Yeah.
you know, that I feel like, well, if somebody invited me to direct it, I probably could, you know, at this point, but nothing new. I really want to work with a director. I want to step back and just be the writer.
Mhm.
I would
Yeah.
never consider it. Oh, my play. Oh, it's just I got it today. Is going to be in Plano, Texas, at a community theater there,
I'm good for
and
you.
I'm not
Come on.
directing.
Which one?
What?
Which one?
Go My Child.
I'm good.
Good.
You know,
And
they
you
they
should
won
know-
large casts. They and I am neither directing nor producing. That's the best part.
Yeah.
What's the theater called? What's the theater?
Art Center Theater, Center and Theater, both with RE at the end.
Oh,
Art
nice.
Center Theater. Um,
I'm gonna open this
Congratulations.
up. I'm gonna open this up so we can just all be in the same room and hang out with Paul in his office. Like that's what this is for. His door is open. So
Hey.
and so now
I'm
we
having
see-
trouble. I'm having technical difficulties, so I can't turn on my video, and I don't know why.
Yeah, and I can't even ask you. Yeah,
Moving
because
around too much, so I
Can't figure out what's going on, so I can't.
that's okay, and I can't help you. So
Well, so Pat, you know, if a theater particular, let's say a particular theater says, I'll just give you the example, like theaters in Europe often are looking for things with large casts because they have all kinds of people on, you know, the payroll. So they're like, we've got children, we've got everything. So you can kind of write towards that. But then, you know, bringing it back to the US, and again, like theater camps or colleges could do that. But I get, you know, how would you advise people to sort of revise their work or not, you know, to sort of, you know, sometimes a play is what it is, right? But it seems like, you know, you go for the bigger picture, and then sometimes you have to make it smaller. Like, just kind of walk me through how you might deal with that as a producer
Uh,
if you were interested in something like that.
Well, the question that I ask myself is, how much is it going to cost to do this?
Right.
And if what it cost me to do something is more than I could possibly make up in ticket sales,
Yeah.
then it's an obvious, absolute no. Then I start if that's not the case, then I start looking at what characters, because usually the biggest expense is the character salary,
Yeah.
you know, the actor salaries. And so how can you reduce, can you double? If it was done in an environment where the large cast sizes like a university are
Yeah.
encouraged, then, and you're translating it to a commercial venue.
Yeah, maybe, you know, smaller like theater in Florida or something,
Yeah.
you know.
I would start looking at who could be doubled, what characters could be cut, that sort of thing. But a lot of plays have a character who just comes on to deliver a piece of information that the audience needs. You know, and that's the only reason that they're there. So if you could figure out, I talked with the playwright about figuring out a way of making that information available without bringing in an extra character to do it.
Yeah. So you do think like you would consider talking to an author and
yeah.
saying,
Yeah.
hey, you know, and like if the author was willing to work on it, like, so you feel that is like you know, like in the realm of possibility.
Yeah, oh yeah. If I really like to play, the first thing I'm going to do is, but I have problems with it from a purely financial point of view.
Right.
Uh, I will sit down and work with the writer to see if they'll be able to make changes that would make it more producible.
That's good to know because, yeah, because some, like, you know, different needs, especially musicals, you know, and like you're saying, you know, like colleges and universities have a lot of people, so they actually looking for 29 roles or, you know,
Yeah.
kind of thing, because they've got all of those people paying their tuition to get some role, get experience. But then, you know, you're not going to get into the colleges unless you have some sort of a commercial run, right? I mean, in a lot of ways.
No, I mean, or you're a student,
Yeah.
or a friend of yours from drama school is the dean of the theater department. You know,
Right.
all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Right. Or you're, you know, Kate's got that relationship and things like that for sure. Yeah.
Well,
When I,
you know,
when I,
yeah.
when I was in college, we did a play called Viet Rock because the director, the faculty member who's also the director, knew the writer from his New York days.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Megan Perry. Yeah.
Right.
But I don't know if I would necessarily write off, you know, university. Even if you don't have relationships, I mean, it's kind of like a lot of things. You can um, figure out ways to wheedle your way in and get conversations going with people. And a lot of times, even if the play itself doesn't have, you know, some big track record, it may have something about it that appeals to that particular school, and they may be willing to talk to you. I mean,
Oh,
I've got a couple of university productions with plays that have not had, you know, any commercial life, you know, before it. They were large cast plays.
this theater is collaborative, and the more people you know and are friendly with, the better you are. And even if you don't have something that is something that kind of particular theater wants, the fact that you are nice and know them and you know are friendly, you may get down the road get something.
Mhm.
So before we switch topics, Barbara's raised her
Yeah.
hand.
Oh.
I also want to say that if you remember last year when Larry Little was in the producer office hours,
Yeah.
now I tell people, well, you know what? This version would be a great TYA or educational play version. Now write the commercial version. What do
Right.
you think? You know, and that way you can use the same songs and things like that. So that's what I learned from him. You can have the same play in a junior version and then in a high school version and then the commercial version to, you know, license even more and reach out to a greater amount of people. So that's some of the advice I'm giving now. So what do you think about that, Pat?
Well, yeah, I agree with it. Um, you think of Tennessee Williams. He never finished a play. Every time there was a production, he was rewriting it.
Well, I also think of Disney and think of, you know, how many variations they do on each
Oh,
show, you know, and it just gets it out there even more.
yeah.
So,
Yeah,
and
well,
it's
just
working.
today there was an announcement, you know, that Water for Elements Water for Elephants high school version was now available. So that's, yeah.
Right. That's a smart choice. That's really very, very smart. So, all right. Barb.
Just a quick question, Patrick, because I noticed this when I ever did that, speed dating, pitching, or whatever, which in person was a sweatbox nightmare.
Yeah.
It was just hideous. Um, but but you survive and you learn. And one thing I noticed is that a lot of the producers immediately gravitated to the cast size. So is there a number that's the sweet spot, but when you go over it for, let's say, for a play, that you have to be, you know, a known entity before somebody would consider you. So like, is it 5, maybe 6? Is it 4? You know?
The rule of thumb that I operate by is 10 or fewer, it's an off-Broadway play. More than 10, it's got to be a Broadway play. And
Oh, no worries. I never write 10.
it's the idea is that a Broadway theater is 1,000 seats and an off-Broadway theater is 200 seats.
Mhm.
If you've got more than 10 people, you can't make enough money in selling tickets to pay the actors.
Right.
I have done the speed date both as a playwright and as a producer, and I much prefer being a producer than I do
Oh,
a playwright.
geez, I wonder why.
But I had written a musical version of The Exonerated, about a person who had been arrested, tried, and convicted for something that they didn't do, and the main character's sister spent the whole play getting him exonerated. And it was a musical. And so I pitched to the producers, half of the producer group that I was doing of the 11 producers were people that I had worked with and produced with. And so I was still nervous and horrified and things like that. But one of the people that I didn't know who was on the thing said, "Oh, you've got too many characters for this to be off Broadway, and it's not a Broadway subject. So you probably won't go anywhere." And I said, "No, it's only got 10 people in it. It's right at, I understand it's right at the level, but it's got 10 people, so it would work off Broadway." And she said, "No, there's no off-Broadway play that was successful with 10 people." And I said, "Well, what about The Exonerated?" And she said, "Oh no, that had more than 10 people. Or that had less than 10 people." And I said, "No, I don't think so." And I didn't want to say I produced it. I know how many actors.
Great.
And they said, "Nope, nope, no, it had less than 10 people." And I said, "Okay, thank you." You know, because I didn't want to get into, I know how many damn checks I signed.
Yeah.
But it's roughly 10 people, it's off Broadway. More than that, it's Broadway in terms of cast size. I
And
mean,
that,
obviously, the fewer actors you have, the less money you're going to have to spend on actor salaries, which makes it more producible. But you also have to think about, and this is something that writers don't think about. They think about cast size, but they don't think about, oh, if I have a 3-character and one's a man, one's a woman, and one's a child, you're really talking about 6 salaries, because you have the 3 or 5 salaries. You have the 3 understudies for each one of the characters, plus because you have a child, you have to have a tutor, and you have to have a child wrangler.
Yeah.
So you're really paying 5 salaries for a 3-character play rather than 4 salaries, or 4 salaries for a 3-character play.
Mhm.
For children, don't you have to have 2 children for each role?
I've never done a play with the children, so I'm not sure, but that sounds reasonable. Well, I mean, yes, you'd have to have an understudy. You'd have to have an understudy. The question is whether if you have 2 children, the understudy and the actor, whether or not you have to have 2 child wranglers and 2 teachers, or you can get by with 1 teacher.
Wow.
Yeah, there was a time when I did CTI, which was 2013. So Billie Eilish was running, and Matilda was running, and all of these like heavy children casts. And so the Broadway League actually just set up like a homeschool,
Oh, okay.
and made it easier.
Mhm.
But yeah, you have to do those
yeah,
things.
yeah.
I mean, Broadway, you can get away with a lot more than you can off Broadway in terms of the financial aspects, because if you're selling $1 million worth of tickets a day, the actor salary is kind of don't amount to all that much. But in an off-Broadway show, they're a huge component of the budget. You look at what percent of a budget is the actor salary is going to be. And there's hopefully, I don't, there are general managers who have ideas about what the set should be X% of the budget. The actor salary should be X% of the budget. And I don't, none of that I know myself. That I always get a general manager as the very first thing to do, to tell me that sort of thing.
So do you get a general manager first, or do you get a lawyer first to write the general manager's contract?
The general manager contract is, hi, I'm hiring you, and the general manager will tell you what they get.
Okay.
Unless they're your friend and they're going to do it for free, which never happens actually, come to think of it. Or they'll give you a discount. I've worked with the same general manager on the last few productions, and I've known him for years and years and years. Martin Platt, I've known him for years and years, and he gives me a discount.
Okay, so but you do have to hire a lawyer.
Well, a lawyer has to write up contracts. General managers will deal with a handshake, and they'll say, this is how much I'm going to charge you, and you go, okay. And they do general manager stuff. There's not, as far as I know, or have ever experienced, there's not a complicated contract with a general manager that you would need a lawyer to do. It's just like it's a one-page agreement, and they tell you what they're going to charge you and what they're going to do.
But you need a lawyer for opening papers.
Yeah, you need a lawyer for opening papers. You need a lawyer for options. You need a lawyer for a lot of things.
Right.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
Is there ever a situation where it might be helpful to a writer to try to connect with a general manager to kind of look at your script and give you a sense of, costs, parameters, that kind of thing? Would that ever be something that you might want to consider doing?
Oh yeah, they will charge you for it.
Yeah, understandably there'd be a fee, but I mean.
Yeah, that if you say, okay, I've written this play and I don't know what the cost would be for it, I've got 42 sets, I've got X number of actors, they can look at it and give you costs on things. You can say, hi there, would you do a budget for this?
Right, yeah. Could you say to them, can you look at this play and tell me how I could get the production costs down? Is that something a general manager might do?
Yeah. That's something that they're supposed to do.
Okay.
That's one of the things that a general manager does is say, this costs too much. Here's a way of making it cost less. I mean, an example from the book is and this isn't a general manager, but one of the things I look at is are props that are expendable. If there's food being used, if things break, you have to replace them every time you do the play.
Right.
Every production. And so this, we're doing a play where the actor popped the champagne cork. And so we went out and found the cheapest champagne. It was like $3 a bottle to get that cork popping. And the actor's note was, excuse me, but my character would not drink this cheap champagne. It has to be, like a $20 bottle of champagne or $40 or whatever.
Change the label.
Yeah, that's what we ended up doing. We Xeroxed a really fancy champagne label and put it on.
Yeah.
But so yes, if I had a general manager, this was actually the first show I ever produced. So if I had a general manager, he would have said, don't get the don't get the $100 bottle of champagne,
Right.
$3 bottle of champagne.
Okay.
I have, in my show, I have a really great moment where a motorcycle comes through the wall. And it sounds like it's exceedingly costly to do. But a bunch of us sat in on a few meetings and figured out a way to pull it off in a way that was really inexpensive. And so I've put that into the script. Do you think that's a good idea?
Oh, your suggestion on how to do it, you mean?
Yeah, how, how you, because it got a, a huge amount of bang for the buck.
Yeah, it would not hurt.
Okay,
Give it, just remember that a director or a set person might say, I've got a better way of doing it.
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, it was, I had a writer who had wanted to have a shotgun go off into the ceiling and all of the stuff coming down. And then the very next, like, lights out, lights back up, and it was 6 months later. So it's like all of this crap's on the floor, and 6 months later, it's still, the crap's still on the floor. It was, the way we solved that was we talked the person out of having the shotgun go into the ceiling and all the stuff fall down.
Well, that's the kind of thing that has to happen right before the intermission, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You shoot up the ceiling and then you got 15 minutes to clean up the mess.
Yeah. I
Fortunately, the show takes place within a 10-hour period, so we don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, the another thing that writers don't think about is if you make something more likely to cause a problem, like any set that has a stairs on it means that somebody walking up the stairs can fall off and injure themselves. So your insurance company will take that into consideration when they're calculating your premiums.
Wow.
So
Oh,
there are a lot of things that you will put in because it's cool, but it's like, oh, the insurance, you might jack up your insurance premium because you do that. And I've had people who, this one play I didn't do, had a character walk up to, it was set in a library, and there was books on the second floor and books on the ground floor, and the character would go up and pull a book off the shelf, look at it, put it back, and come back down. That was it. But it was like, why can't he pull a book off the ground floor? Not only is a set more expensive to construct when it's multi-level, but it's also, you have an insurance issue, and there are things like that. It's like, why are you doing this? And is it absolutely necessary? That's if you've got a producer that you've met and likes your play and are working with, the more difficult you are in picking your the more you pick your battles on the important stuff, not the minor stuff, the better the relationship and the more likely that you will keep that producer. They won't say, yeah, I can't deal with this anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Pat, you and I both have worked with writers who just give you a lot of pushback. Like, yeah, no, I don't agree. I don't think, I don't really think that I want to change that or whatever, So I go, okay, lots of luck to you. That's great. That's your vision. You should have that. Only
had a-
walk away
I had a
going,
con-
I'm not going to produce it.
I had a conversation with a writer about whose play I read and liked, and it was set in medieval times, and the bad guy whacked a 12-year-old. It said, the 12-year-old girl ran up and the bad guy gave her a whack and knocked her down. And so I said, well, there are two issues with this. One is that, it's a 12-year-old. And so which is a child. And the other one is why does he have to actually physically hit? Can't he say nasty things to her or something, you know? You're adding to the expense of the production by having a child, and by having a child, you know, which means if you have to hire a stunt coordinator to do that. Or, and it's the same thing now with love scenes. You have to have an intimacy coordinator. You know, if people kiss or they fist bump, you know, kissing, you have to have an intimacy coordinator. Fist bumping, you don't. So is there a way of writing the play so that shows affection?
Well, sometimes the needs to tell the story, you just need to invest in that.
Yeah.
And any producer will, if they like your work, they're going to see the need for that. And so it's just going to be part of the expense.
Yeah.
You know, that's also the thing that playwrights justifiably push back against, you know, because if your story needs this to happen, and for Wendy, it's that wall falling apart, then any producer that options it understands, okay, so for this story, I need to invest in that, you know.
Yeah.
But if
When-
it's not critical to the story, well, then you should listen to your producer. So, you know, because if they're offering something, consider it.
I had the conversation I had with the writer was, could we have an 18-year-old who looked really young be hit? And he said, no, I would know they weren't 12 years old.
What?
I would know. And that would upset me too much.
Hmm.
And sometimes, I hate to say it, it's just gratuitous. And so sometimes, just like the Greeks, there's a reason why they didn't have the violence on stage, because sometimes it's really hard to put your audience through that. You know, you start the violence and then like fade with muffled sounds and then rejoin in, you know, the next scene with the person with like a bruise or something, you know. Sometimes it's hard for an audience to sit through too, by the way.
Sometimes it's hard to stage it well. Fights can be really dicey.
So when you're writing, there are all these things that should be in the back of your mind, not in the forefront, but in the background. That will make your play more producible. And the book is focused on commercial production, Broadway and off Broadway. So a lot of things that are in it won't apply to universities or regional theater or community theaters. But one of the reasons that I started writing in addition to being artistic, having an artistic output, is because I hope that somebody would pay money to see my play, you know, and that means commercial theater. That's where you can make money. I mean, look at good old Lin-Manuel Miranda, you know, he's making millions of dollars.
Or Wicked.
Or Wicked.
They
Which,
kept
by the way, I saw the movie and I really liked the movie, in case
You did.
anybody hasn't seen it yet.
All 3 hours of it? That's what.
Yes. Yep.
Really?
Well,
No.
it's cut in half. The first movie ends with Defying Gravity.
Yeah, but it was still pretty long.
Yep.
2 movies? I haven't seen it.
Yeah. Well, yes,
It's going to be in 2.
Yeah, it's Defying Gravity ends the first part, and then the second part has the other 2 good songs in it.
I thought that, there are lots of good songs. I thought it was going to be long, but I like went in like thinking it was, you know, like worried about that, but it wasn't. Before I knew it, it was so good.
Yep.
That it, you know, it didn't matter. It moved along. It didn't drag out. It's like, oh, how are you going to take this and double the length? But you know, between that and the cinematography, I mean, things that you'll do on stage really quickly. Now you can have a scene where something is happening in the film. So yeah, I was pleasantly surprised.
All right. All right. Oh, okay. So anybody got any other questions here?
So I like what you said there, Pat, about, you know, can the person be, instead of 12, can they be 18? Because I think I did the same thing in my because we were writing for something where they said we want children. You know, I made a character as a child, and then but in the cast list, I said it could be a young girl, you know, or an actor who looks young.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, is that enough to sort of say like I'm
Yeah.
flexible?
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
yeah,
An
if
actor
you
who
don't,
plays young, you know,
if,
like you get somebody 18 and they,
yes, you look like a child. I
yeah,
mean, there are plays where obvious adults are playing children. Like You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown is the classic example.
right. Oh, and yeah, I mean, I know a character actress, it's true. And she was in her 20s and she was always cast as a teen. So what am I saying?
Shouldn't the
And
director always make these calls to say, well, and I wrote it and I envisioned this person? Like, isn't that where the writer ends and the director begins?
Yes,
I
that
mean,
that
if you're going
that's
to make specifications, this person has to be that, the actor has to be this ethnicity.
yeah,
I mean, you can do that, but then you're limiting the production and it's
yeah, yes, that makes it less likely that your play would get produced.
yeah.
Yeah, which is what you're trying to avoid. You want to keep the producer on board.
Yeah.
And one of the way, I mean, I had a conversation with the writer. We did their play. It was really good and really well received. And then, because the original contract that the lead producer had signed limited the rights to just that production. Um, and so I wanted to continue with it, you know, on a new contract and things like that. And so when I sat down with the writer, her comment was, okay, here's I want veto power over these decisions. And one of the things that you wanted veto power over was who the general manager was going to be. And I said, that's, you know, not something that writers typically get to pick. And she said, well, I don't care. I have to have that. Otherwise, I'm not going to sign you. I signed the contract. And I said, well, sorry, I'm not going to sign the contract either. If you get veto proof over things that are not really in the writer's ballpark. You know, I'm very pro writer when it being one when I'm as a producer, but there's some things that writers like to micromanage that they shouldn't micromanage.
I think a lot of writers, once they find a producer that wants to take a chance on them, you know, it's so hard to get to that point and they've already expended so many years and so much energy, they're scared. And so if they do things like that, you know, maybe it's just for, you know, like a sense of control, you know, because they're so afraid, because there's so many bad stories out there, you know. I'm not saying it's correct. I'm just trying to understand psychologically where the writer's coming from.
That's why I encourage everybody to belong to the Dramatists Guild because they've been for 100 years or more defending writers. And if they don't think something is bad, it probably isn't bad, even if you want to have control over it.
Just recently, I sent one of our members. She had a licensing contract presented to her, and she asked me to read it over. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but this doesn't look right. So why don't like you're a member of the Dramatist Guild, go and ask for a review. And so she did, And the lawyer at the Dramatists Guild said, yeah, that's what people are getting nowadays. So they said, I apologize. I said, I guess I'm just out of touch, but it's a lot more than what it used to be. That the writer has to pay, or what to give to the licensor, for promoting their show. It was just being an advocate of the playwright. It was a lot more than I ever remember, but I guess I'm out of touch. Martin always says that things now are 45 to 50% more expensive than it was in 2019. So it's a whole new world. It's a whole new world.
Yeah, I agree with DW's comment in the notes about going to the Dramatists Guild and having them review your contracts if you don't have your own lawyer. They won't negotiate for you,
Right.
but they will tell you what's reasonable and what isn't reasonable.
Right. So now
But
I know, because that Dramatists Guild lawyer gave her the thumbs up.
Yeah.
And she signed it. She's going into licensing on that
Yeah.
one project.
It's always, if you can afford it, better to have your own lawyer, because they are your advocate, and if they're good, they will get around. They will get you more than you could get on your own.
Like you say, that's a great reason to belong to the Dramatists Guild.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
This is, it sounds like a humorous question, but I'm actually kind of asking it for real. I don't think until I heard you spoke the last time that the light had gone off in my head. I thought, I've got a 4-character musical, 2 men, 2 women. That's great. It's super reasonable to only have a cast of 4. And I hadn't thought about understudies. And then you talked about understudies, and all of a sudden I realized, this is an issue. It's 6 people. My question is, are any trans people doing understudying these days? People who can play, I know it sounds silly, but it sounds like a great, if I were trans, I'd go into this field where you could understudy either a man or a woman's role.
I don't know.
You have to be trans to do that, actors or actors. I mean, didn't they used to, like, men played women's roles in places and times when women weren't on the stage, right?
Yeah.
In Shakespeare, wasn't that during Shakespeare?
Yeah.
So it's
I think it's a very delicate issue.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think very delicate. So cautiously.
I will never mention it again.
Oh no, I can't remember the name of the movie, but I know a female actor who's non-trans was playing a male to female
Victor
trans
Victoria?
character.
Victor Victoria?
No, that was drag.
Oh, and then Hairspray.
Yeah.
That was the same thing.
But no, this is it was a film about I forget the name of it. Transparent, maybe something like that. Anyway,
Oh, yeah.
but it was a cisgender female, whatever, playing a trans character, male to female trans character. So it's going to be, as people become more accepting of everyone, that we'll have all sorts of interesting opportunities, I think, to do things.
Just a scary time for you in the US. I'm in Canada, that they're only recognizing two areas on the passport.
Oh, well, once you've become our 51st state.
Okay, good thing, Patrick, you're on the other side of that end.
Oh my God.
I would slap you silly for that remark.
Oh God.
What part of Canada are you from?
Toronto. Toronto.
Toronto, okay. I love Toronto. It has the best I'm a public transportation nerd, and it has the best public transportation.
It does in a certain area. You know, if you get further afield, it's a bit sketchy, but in certain key areas where tourists and visitors would go, it's really good. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It'd be easier if you could get to New York. I'm sorry, you know I love you.
Yeah, no, no. I mean, listen. I don't live there, you know, and um, I guess all you can do is laugh or you cry.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, I anyway. That's a whole other.
That's a whole, yeah.
Pat, I know you're in California. Are you away from the fires? I hope.
Oh, yeah.
You're north.
It's an 8-hour drive.
Oh,
to where the
okay.
fires are. I have friends who almost one friend who almost lost her house. But and she was finally let back in yesterday.
Ah, wow. Yeah.
She was prevented from going to where her house was for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And she was just, I saw a little video that she put up on social media about, oh God, I'm back in my house. You know,
Wow.
I have clean clothes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Did
Well,
she know at this time during the 2 weeks that her house was safe or not safe?
She knew it was safe.
Oh, okay, that's at least good.
Yeah.
To not know for 2 weeks would be horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, so people that I vaguely have met, and you know, I belong to the Players Club, which has a lot of people floating through,
yeah.
actors and things, and I met Steve Gutenberg a couple of times and chatted with him, and his house was burnt down.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, and I'm sure everybody else, I don't know anybody who lives in LA proper. They just live on the edges of LA.
Hmm.
But yes, we had our fires up here, but they were north of San Francisco. The city itself, it would be okay, I think, because there's not a lot of greenery, except actually where I am, because I'm in the edge of Glen Canyon Park, which is this giant undeveloped area. And so if a fire ever caught here, we'd be gone, but it'd have to get here first. And so
Yeah.
we were more worried about earthquakes than we are about fires.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the other one. Earthquakes where oh gosh, I know. I'm on a river, so I should speak. It's, you know.
Well, Canada's got lots of space, people, you know. I'm just saying. We're nice people too, you know. So.
Oh yeah, yeah. I love Canada. I like Canada. It's very nice, pretty. Great, great.
So anybody else have any questions for Pat, or are you good?
I'm excited to read the book.
Oh,
Me
thank
too.
You.
Me too. Looking forward.
Yeah.
It's a page turner. I devoured it like, you know, in one day.
It sounds like something that's really needed, you know?
No, one of the things that universities do not do a good job at in terms of the arts, not just theater, but all arts, is that they don't teach the practical business side.
Mhm.
You know, there are
Mhm.
dozens of courses on how to write a play, but nothing on, once you've written the play, how you find a producer, how you get a producer to read your play, and all of the things that my book is doing. And I would love it if universities would buy tons of copies and use it as a basis of a course, which Kate and I are talking about, using the book as a basis of a course that
Good.
Sounds
create-
good.
Or a class, at least. I
Yeah,
mean, when I
class.
was in school and I was an English major, you'd read a book a week, you know, or 2 weeks, you know, you'd read a 500-page book and then have a class on it, and then next. At least one class or two classes to really dig into it, you know?
Do you think they do that anymore? Because I'm not sure.
No, and I say no.
Oh, okay.
Really?
What, like read book a week?
Yeah. And big books.
I
That's
don't
the
know.
trouble with
At
it.
Columbia, I think they still do. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, you have to read a lot, a lot.
But-
Every
But they're getting
class, a lot.
pushback. I mean, that's been the subject of a couple of different things at the Chronicle of Higher Ed. How do you get them to read? Why won't they read? Why can't they focus enough to sit down on a whole book? I mean, and we, well, at least all I can say is my own experience, but it seems like from reading these articles, other faculties are being advised they can't do it. Don't make them feel bad about themselves. And so the curriculum is being quote unquote dumbed down.
Ugh. That's
You
how,
And
can
that's
just get an F if you couldn't pass the test, you know, you got an F. That was it. That was the incentive.
that doesn't fly in CUNY. And a lot of other, just the workload is much lighter than it used to be.
Mhm.
And we're encouraged to do it like that.
Well, I went to college when I was 30, so there you go. It was a different thing. I wanted to read. And I think
Mhm.
sometimes it's wasted on younger people. I think people should take a gap year or something and do something they really want to do, and then come back and have a completely different attitude. But that's me.
Absolutely.
I think so.
So, I mean, what if you read a play a month? You know, that's sort of like what I'm thinking for the art of playwriting to get different structure or something. And I'm thinking we should just read it all together because I don't think anyone's going to do their homework, but maybe I've been conditioned to think that nobody's going to read it.
Oh, well, if you're talking about, you know, people who are working and then have to, that's a different story, you know, like people who are working can't always, it can take a month to read a book for sure, you know?
Mhm.
So, yeah. Anyway.
Anyway,
Thank you, Pat. This was great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Always like listening to you. Really.
well, you know so much,
Mhm.
Pat. You
And
know so
when I don't, I make it up.
But
But
very,
you have to work on knowing your own CV. That's the only thing. Kate gave you the, like, if you were doing an interview, it would be, I mean, Kate had to prime you for your own
Oh,
CV. So you're going to
yeah.
have to work on remembering your own credits.
Yeah,
That would be my best advice.
it's when you're doing a program bio, it's always being cut. You can't put this in, and I should have, you know, 4 or 5 things right at the top of my mind to where I can just rattle them off.
I'm just rattling your chain.
Oh
'cause you
no,
say first, you know that.
I agree with you. Absolutely agree with you.
Start with the awards, Pat.
Yeah. I always leave out when I played center field for the Yankees too.
all right. All
Here,
right, guys.
I'd like to get a word copy also, and I'll try to figure out how to be able to make comments in the margin.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's a command. It's in the up at top. It's called
Comment, actually, it's just comment or track changes or
track changes. Yeah.
yeah, it's really pretty easy.
Okay.
Great.
My email, and I will put it in the chat. So everybody can send, who wants one, they can send me, please send me a Word copy.
Okay.
Okay.